One of the first steps of the college applications process is deciding where to apply. And frankly, it's one of the most overwhelming steps. Among the hundreds and hundreds of schools out there, how are you supposed to figure out which one is the best for you, which ones are the most likely to accept you, and which ones your family can actually afford? Well, in this video, we'll break down how to build a strong and balanced school list so that you start the process out on the right foot. As you start building your school list, there are 4 different axes that you should consider. They are, number 1, difficulty, whether a school is a reach, a target, or a safety. Number 2, timing, whether you'll apply early action, early decision, or regular decision. Number 3, preference, whether you fit with the school. And number 4, return on investment, or ROI, whether the school will be worth it based on its price, the financial aid you'll receive, scholarships, and future earnings. So let's jump into the first consideration, which is difficulty. There are 3 terms that you should know when it comes to difficulty. They are reach, target, and safety. A reach school is a college where your admissions chances aren't super high. It's possible for you to get accepted, but the odds aren't really in your favor. You'll need a truly impressive admissions profile, from academics to extracurriculars to essays. It's important to note that the top 10 schools in the country are considered reach schools for every single applicant, even if their GPA and their SAT scores are perfect. These schools are just so competitive that almost every serious applicant has stellar academics, so the more subjective components of the application are normally what make up the difference between acceptance or rejection. There are exceptions in really extreme or special cases, like if you're a recruited athlete or an international math Olympian. But moving on to the next classification, a target school is a college whose admissions stats line up well with your application's profile. You have a pretty decent chance of being admitted to this school, since your resume is pretty similar to those resumes of previously accepted students. In this case, you need a pretty good, though not perfect, application to get in. Finally, and thirdly, there are safety schools. Safety schools are the colleges where you have a very high chance of being accepted. For safeties, your GPA, your test scores, and your extracurriculars go above and beyond those of the average accepted student. Safety schools are really important to have on your list because they dramatically decrease your probability of being rejected from every school you apply to, which is not what anyone wants. That said, not even safeties are guaranteed acceptances. You have to be wary of Tufts syndrome, or yield protection. Yield is the percentage of accepted students who ultimately attend, and colleges sometimes try to inflate their yield to look more desirable. So schools who are practicing yield protection will sometimes reject or waitlist candidates that they just think are unlikely to enroll. Yield protection is also called Tufts syndrome, since Tufts University is frequently accused of using this practice. To avoid being rejected by a safety school known for practicing yield protection, you should demonstrate your interest, your genuine interest, by visiting campus, signing up for their email lists, and opening those emails, and definitely writing any optional essays for the school. How long should school lists be? And some examples. Now that we've gone over reach, target, and safety schools, let's talk about school list length. The ideal school list will have 8 to 12 schools in total, with the total number distributed as equally as possible across reach, target, and safety. Technically, there is a maximum number of schools you can apply to, but there are some factors that might limit you. These factors are, firstly, money. Believe it or not, it costs between $50 and $100 to apply to most colleges. That could be $1,000 in total if you apply to 10 or more schools. If your family has financial hardship, you may be able to qualify, however, for a waiver. A next limiting factor is time. Each school requires its own essays, and those take time to research, write, and edit. Another limiting factor is just emotional energy. The applications process is draining. It requires you to reflect on your past and your future. You invest so much time and effort into creating an application that represents you that you might get tired of doing it after 8 to 12 schools. To give you a better idea of what makes a good or a bad school list, let's take a look at some examples. This is a poor school list because it's really top-heavy with reaches. The 8 Ivy League schools make up almost the entire list, and each of those have acceptance rates of 11% or lower. There's only one target school on this list, and it's known for practicing yield protection, so it's not guaranteed that you'll get in there either. Applying only to reach schools is probably one of the worst school list mistakes students make, so definitely do your best to balance your list across those 3 categories. Let's look at another example. This one is more balanced, but it's too short. All of the schools on this list also have acceptance rates under 18%, so not even the target or safety schools are really that safe. Acceptance rates aren't the only factor in determining whether a school is reach, target, or safety. We also have to take into account the student's competitiveness. A safety school for one student is a target school for someone else. But since we don't have the student profiles when we're looking at these examples, we can really only look at acceptance rates. Now, another example. This list is much more balanced and it's a smart length. The safety schools are also more safe as they have acceptance rates of over 50%. The same goes for this list here, which is balanced and a good length. Another example. This one is also a strong school list and is perfectly distributed across reach, target, and safety schools. Now let's move on to the next factor you should consider in building your school list, which is timing. Let's take a look at application timelines. When you can apply can make the difference between acceptance or rejection. Here are the most common application timelines. Early action, or EA, you usually apply by November 1st and you hear back by December 15th. For early decision, it's the same as early action in terms of dates, but it's binding. So if you're accepted, you must attend. You can only apply to one school early decision. You can apply to other schools that are not early decision, but you must withdraw if you're accepted to your ED school. Single choice early action, same as EA and ED, but are not binding. It's the most common amongst Harvard, Princeton, Yale. You can apply EA, ED to private schools, but you can apply EA to public schools. Regular decision, usually you'll apply by January 1st and you'll hear back on April 1st. And then lastly, there's rolling admissions, where you can apply whenever you want before the application date and you'll hear back shortly. There are often some questions concerning timelines, particularly those early timelines. One of the most common is it easier to get in early or regular? The answer here is that it's easier to get in early. Many more people apply in regular decision, and even though it was previously believed that qualified applicants apply early, leading to higher rates, we discovered through data that even if you control for profile strength, there's still a benefit to applying early. Students have about a 10 to 12% higher chance of acceptance if they apply ED, 6 to 8% for single choice early action, and about 4 to 6% for normal early action. Another question families often have is, does applying early affect financial aid? Well, the same offers, financial aid offers, are given regardless if an applicant applies early or regular. Families concerned about financial aid, however, should remember that early decision is binding, so the financial aid offer can't be compared to other offers or negotiated using other offers. If the offer is insufficient, most schools will negotiate. Schools will allow students to withdraw from the ED arrangement if they can't truly afford the school, however. Finally, many students wonder, if I don't get in early or early decision, can I apply again in regular decision? No, you can only apply to each school once. Schools defer students that they want to reconsider in the regular round, which means that they'll refrain from making a decision until the regular decision round. The Ivies with single choice early action are notorious for deferring the majority of early applicants. Now we've gone over how to build a list based on difficulty and based on timing, but what about the most important part, which is fit? There are countless factors to consider when it comes to the fit and how you'll fit with a school, and these are just a few. The ones highlighted in green are some of the most important, though what's important definitely varies for each student. You might be wondering how to find schools based on all of these factors. Well, one of the most common ways is to use College Board's Big Future tool, which allows you to input your preferences from school size to average SAT scores to financial aid. Many students also use ranking lists, though that's not as tailored to fit as it is to difficulty. It can be helpful to be open to suggestions from those you know, such as your friends, your family, and school counselors. Your counselor will likely have access to many resources like books and brochures, but just remember that those aren't personalized for your own profile. Your friends and family will give suggestions that fit you, but you may have already heard of the schools they suggest from your older peers. Searching for schools is honestly one of the hardest parts of putting together a college list, but if you try various different sources, you should be able to find a decent number of schools that are a great fit for you. And lastly, we've come to ROI and financial considerations. That's return on investment, the financial side of applying to college. While a college education has many intangible benefits, families should still consider college to be a decision with major financial consequences. College is actually the second largest financial decision a family can make, only second to home buying. Families can make sure their college decision is financially sound by minimizing debt and maximizing return. Here's a really simple way to crunch the numbers. You take future earning potential divided by net price over 4 years minus expected financial aid minus scholarships. One thing we wanted to clarify is that more expensive schools aren't necessarily unaffordable for your family. Many selective schools do indeed have high sticker prices, but they offer generous need-based financial aid. You should always check the school's net price calculator to see what your family might be expected to pay. If financials will be a major factor in your ability to attend a college, you might want to look into need-blind and no-loan schools, as well as those that meet 100% of demonstrated financial need. Need-blind schools make offers of acceptance without taking into account a student's ability to pay. The process can never be totally blind, as admissions officers see your contextual details such as your parents' jobs or life experiences you've had, but need-blind schools officially state that they do not base their decisions on financial need. No-loan schools are those that don't offer loans in their financial aid packages, though you can still take out federal or private loans if you need additional funding. Finally, schools that meet 100% of demonstrated need commit to providing enough financial aid to cover a family's demonstrated need, as determined through the FAFSA application. Families are likely to still have to pay something, but these schools are known for having the most generous financial aid programs. This wraps up the 4 different axes you'll want to consider when putting together your college list. I hope you found this information helpful and that you feel at least a little bit more ready to tackle this major step in the college applications process. If you want to learn more about making a strong school list, I encourage you to check out our blog at blog.collegefind.com and our school list webinar, which is linked below. Good luck!